Hi, everyone. It's Marilyn Alauria. Welcome to Who Can It Be Now? I'm a psychic medium teacher and coach. And one of the greatest pleasures I get in my work is to meet incredible people like Safire Rose. So today we're going to be discussing her book, Awakening, and so many other things about how she got to her on her spiritual journey and how she got to this book, which is Poems of Light on the Path of Love. And she's also the author of this very famous poem called She Let Go, which went viral. We might talk a little bit about that as well. And I really want you to listen to Sapphire's story because I feel like all of us, when we hear other people's stories, it inspires us to move forward, to get through things. You might be going through a difficult time right now, or you might be feeling inspired to write your own book and you don't know what to do. And I feel like Sapphire is going to really invite you into an experience in your own life where you get to discover through her stories and her heartache and the things that she went through, how you yourself can experience life and go through different things and change your life and change things. We don't need to stay stuck. We can move forward. So I am going to read a little bit of her bio, which I don't normally do, but I'm going to do that because I like to just talk to people and let them share. And then we're going to move right into it. Safire Rose, MA, JD. So MA is
Master's,
master's and the JD is it
Juris Doctor. It's a law degree.
great. Is a poet, author, teacher of timeless wisdom, and inspirational interspiritual minister. She's best known for her poem, She Let Go. She lives with a partner, Christy, in the greater Los Angeles area, enjoys writing jazz and communing with nature. For further information, please visit sapphire-rose.com, and we will have that in the show notes. Hi, Sapphire.
Hi, Marilyn. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to be you're here too. So your book is coming out on July 16th, right?
That's right.
But they can pre-order it now if they're listening on July 11th in Amazon, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it's called Awakening, Poems of Light and the Path on the Path of Love. So let's start out with first, what made you write a book of poetry? By the way, as you all know, nobody knows the questions I'm going to ask, so just know that, all right? What made you write a book about poetry? Write a book on poetry.
I've always been drawn to poems. I used to write them as a child. I would wake up in the middle of the night and write them on anything that was available, like shoe boxes or whatever I had there. I used to share them with people like in high school and stuff. So I've always been drawn to poetry, and particularly, I think it has poetry generally has a rhythm, and generally allows you to connect with something deeper. And it's, I feel like it's a gift that kind of comes through me, and I'm not really, not trying to do poetry. There's just, the poem is me, and it comes through me. So
Do you feel like you're channeling the poetry?
I do feel like that. I usually get like a sentence, maybe the beginning sentence. I have to do writing to get out of the way so that I can hear the first sentence. But I hear the sentence, and then I can usually flow with it.
And what are you hoping people gain from reading this book?
Yeah, the book comes from a deep place of my own spiritual awakening, and I feel that when you read these poems, there is an energetic in them that allows you to grow and expand. And so I feel it is inspiring, and it's not these poems are not meant to put you to sleep. They really have an awakening energy about them. So I hope that they inspire people to grow, not give up, stay focused, stay on the path, allow yourself to grow and expand.
Right. Although I do feel, and I want to ask about your spiritual journey in a second, but I do feel like having this book by my bedside table, because I do feel like a lot of work happens in the dream state that allows us to have a conscious awakening when we wake up. And I want to know what you think about this. Like if I keep this book by my bedside table and I just open to a poem and read it, would that be a great way to have an experience with this book?
Absolutely, Marilyn. And I feel that even if you didn't even open and read it, it would be beneficial to you, because I do feel that it carries an energy all of its own.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the words, right? So absolutely, if you just have it by your bedside, but I think it is a good thing to do right before you go to bed, because it kind of takes you to the deeper places within yourself as you sleep. And then, you awaken and then you awaken, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because when I was going through a really difficult time in my late 20s, really difficult, I had books like this near my bed, and they would just always give me a sense of calm or peace or a deeper understanding, and I feel like this feels like the type of book that is really gonna help guide people on, like you said, an awakening journey and help people to possibly experience solutions where they're not finding solutions or experience peace where they're not feeling peace. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I do feel that many of the solutions that we're looking for in the outer world are actually in our inner world. And these poems, sort of like are keys into yourself, that allow you to experience a greater awareness of love and peace, and allow you to just explore things about yourself, right? That you may not uncover reading a straight text or a linear kind of writing. The poem takes you inward into other dimensions of yourself, right? Because we're multi-dimensional beings.
Yeah, love that. So tell us a bit, first of all, the cover, guys. You have to just go to Amazon alone. And if you on YouTube are seeing this, the cover alone is like so beautiful. So, so beautiful. It's amazing. I love it. Did you pick it?
I had suggestions about it, and one of the suggestions was that it looked sort of ethereal. So I wanted to look sort of mystical.
Hmm.
And you would go into that part of yourself that's greater than the sum of your parts, right?
I love that. Okay, let's talk about your journey to your own spiritual journey that has taken you deep. And I know you had some dark moments that people will relate to. So why don't you share a little bit about like what made you awaken? What was one of the moments that was really important for you?
Yeah. So when I was 27 years old, which was a few years ago.
And you know, it's so funny, the time that I was referring to earlier, that's how old I was. It was that whole 27, 28 period. Yeah, go ahead. Mm.
Yeah. So when I was 27, I was in a deep depression actually, and I I didn't exactly know how to get out of it, but I had been in therapy for a few years, and I was uncovering a lot of things about my past, but I was still in that sort of deep depression, and I was trying to find my way out. I wasn't really sure how. And then one day, it just got so unbearable that I sort of just said a prayer to the universe, just I want to experience joy in my life.
Mm.
And I didn't know who I was talking to. I wasn't really spiritual in that time period. Um, and then in within just a few days, I was my life sort of turned over, and um, I was in a for 10 days. It's sort of hard to explain, but I regressed to an early age, and I didn't know how to really function in this world. So with the guidance of a therapist, because I didn't have health insurance at the time, she suggested, since I had such a tight women's community I was part of, that people could come and be with me 24/7 and rotate. Um, and so basically, I shifted realities, um, and I was trying to find my way back, was essentially what was happening. So these women would say things like, "Where are you right now?" And my head would sort of go back, and they would bring me back to the present moment. So essentially, it was 24/7 learning how to be mindful and in the present moment, because I had regressed to another time. So the beauty of it really was an intense practice of mindfulness, right?
Mm.
And keep coming back to the present moment to be with the person who was sort of scheduled for that round of the day. And then another cool thing that came out of it was it was like I was conscious and I was aware, but I was also functioning at a really young age. So I had to do things to try to keep me in the present, but I was able to like call people. I had sort of a young sounding voice, but I would ask if they could help me, and come be with me for a shift. And so these women for 24/7 for 10 days would be with me to help me come back to the present, so I wouldn't have to go to the county general hospital, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah. So, kudos to my therapist who even knew that this was an option, right? This is a very alternative way of healing. And also she had certain parameters, like, I wasn't allowed to hurt myself. I wasn't, I had to stay within those parameters. Otherwise I was going to have to go to the hospital. So the beautiful thing that came out of that was people would come to our home and I would ask them, do you love colors, numbers, or words? And then depending on what they said, I would do that activity with them. So if they liked colors, we would usually color together. Words, we would read books together or so. But what happened was, so it looked like people were taking care of me, and they were certainly, but I was also highly intuitive at that time.
Mm.
I was healing them as well. So it was like this beautiful 10 days worth of mutual healing. And at first, a lot of people were hesitant to come be with me. Some people refused because they thought they didn't want to be with someone that had, altered state of reality. But as time wore on and rumors spread, they could see it was like this cauldron of healing, right? And they wanted to be there in the moment and be part of the healing that was happening between us all. So that was my awakening experience. And during that experience, I began to feel this joy that I had never known before, but it is what I had asked for, right? All I want to do is feel joy. Um, and so I began to feel this joy and this presence in my life that I had never felt before. And that presence continues to this day. It's always there. I'm always connected to it. And joy is the best word I know. I know other people describe it in other ways. In my poetry, I try to use different words, different spiritual words so people can understand. It could be like love, joy, all that is. It could be God, goddess, a spirit, trying to allow people to have their own experience of their own spiritual journey, right? Use their own language, which was really important to me when I had my awakening, was to find like, well, what it is, what am I really feeling here? And what is this, to find my own language for it.
So I have a question before I touch on that, because I'm always like I'm trying to understand. Like, it's such a deep experience. It's such an incredible experience. I loved how you described the healing for everybody involved, and even the people that were hesitant in the beginning, which I completely understand because they don't want to feel responsible. They don't know what they're walking into. They don't know that they can handle it, whatever the story may be. When you regressed, for the lack of a better word, did you do it and then go see your therapist? Like, how did your therapist, because that's a pretty big moment for you to have even the wherewithal to then communicate it to her and then carry through with this experience, and then even have the techniques and tools inside of you to say colors, numbers, or words. That's pretty incredible too.
Yeah. So what happened was, I was in therapy. I was going pretty often at that point because I was really depressed, right? And I had been at an earlier age, a few years before that, I had been hospitalized because I tried to hurt myself.
Mhm.
And that was no longer occurring, but I was still depressed, right? And we were trying to figure out, well, why, right? So the day before I sort of went into another reality, my partner Christy and the neighbor were aware that I was having some difficulties. So when Christy wasn't there, my neighbor kind of checked in on me. She saw me walk up our alleyway and checked in on me. And at that point, she could tell I wasn't quite
Yeah.
functioning this reality, right? And so we called up my therapist and she took me there. So
Okay, great.
when I got to my therapist, she was trying to snap me out of it, which was kind of funny because, like I was here and not here at the same time. So I could see what she was trying to do, but I couldn't really help her, right? Because I
Mhm.
was already, but I was kind of like, I was watching her trying to snap me out of it. And I found it amusing because I was kind of like too far at that point, right?
Did you go to a past memory or just a past, like, was it a memory? I don't want you to go into that story, but was
Mhm.
it a memory that was important? Did you go into a past time? Like, it's something from your life, right?
Yeah, it's something I didn't realize till later, what it was, but I regressed to an age when it probably occurred, which was probably about 4 years old.
Right.
So yeah, that was the age that the therapist sort of identified, and I didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. which is kind of what happens at around age
I
4.
I had this experience, so I know what you're talking about. You
Yeah.
didn't know what was real or what wasn't real. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so, she was trying to place me in age based on those things, right, like
Yeah.
what may have occurred. And so just things like, certain certain things in the world were scary to me at that time.
Mm.
Um, people had understanding of maybe what was going on, but I didn't because at that time I was just trying. I My instructions were try to come back to the present moment. That was
Yeah.
my mission, right? For that 10 days, all I was told was come back, try to come back, try to be here in this moment. And because some people don't come back, some people regress and they they don't know how to come back, so that's why some people do, like the beautiful thing about my therapist is she had worked with people who um, had gone to other places in reality and found their way back. And so she knew that there were people who were in worse states than me, that had found their way back. And so because she knew that, I'm not sure if just a therapist who didn't know alternative things would have known that.
No, you would have I'm so you're so blessed that you had that therapist and those people
Yes.
and your partner who we love, Christy is,
Yes.
amazing. Um, it's
Did I
so
explain that? Did I explain that well? I don't know if I
you
probably.
did, you explained it very,
Okay.
very well. And I want to get into this more because some people may relate to this. And I'm going to say, for me, it happened once. It was around that age, and it was a breakdown,
There's a breakdown.
and
Yeah.
I couldn't function.
Yeah.
And I had to go to my friends, and they had to help me because I couldn't make any decisions.
Yeah.
And I had a very high level job at NBC at the time, and I still had to go to work. And I probably wasn't as altered as you were because I still could function a bit. But I remember going to work and closing my door at NBC, and, like, I looked at my clothing and I was like, "What am I wearing?" I had to go back home because I couldn't even get dressed. Like, it was so traumatizing. So I can't even imagine, like, 10 days of what you went through, and I'm so glad that you had those people and therapy there. And what I also think, Sapphire, and I'd love to know from you because I know how gifted you are from being in Next Level Living and just getting to know you and then getting to know you at my retreat and everything. Where is the artist in all of this experience?
Hmm. Oh, I think that's a great question. I also want to just say briefly that,
Yes,
yeah,
it would be
the
neat.
breakdown, I call it a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it's also things have been written about this kind of thing are called spiritual emergencies when it's like you have an awakening like that. But the artist in that, I think,
Wait, say a
well,
little bit more about that just for people who don't know what spiritual emergencies are.
yeah, spiritual emergencies, there's like a broad definition of what that is. There's actually a book called Spiritual Emergency. I can't remember the authors at the moment. But it's basically people who have experiences of awakening that sometimes we call maladaptive in some way, right? Because we're not used to them. But a lot of like uh, shamanic experiences, that kind of
Mm.
thing. Take this course, where you go into another reality, then you come back to this reality. And for me, it was like a complete blessing, right? Because I healed. That's the thing that I want people to hear is that you can heal yourself, right? So I didn't stay stuck there. I actually healed to the point where I have a connection to that presence, right? I have something in me that's independent of the circumstances I'm in, um, that that feeds me and nourishes me. And the artist, I feel, is the one.
So I'll let everybody know my cat was puking, so I had to pause the video. So we were talking about the artist, so you can say that again.
Yeah. So yeah. So the artist, I feel, is right in the midst of that, right? It's someone who can be in more than one dimension at the same time, right? Because that's really what you're doing, right? You're pulling something, inspiration from maybe another dimension of yourself, and putting it in a particular form so that you can use it as your own guidance, but also it's guidance for other people, right? So I think you can, as an artist, you're open to all possibilities, and you do live maybe more more accepting of your multidimensional nature. I'm not saying, I think everybody has that capacity, right? People gravitate it to more maybe than others, you know. But I think I feel all of us are, like all the things I do, like I'm an inner spiritual minister, all of those things. I feel like the umbrella is really art, right?
Mhm.
Artistry. I feel like that's the highest creative art. Creative artistry is the highest thing, right? And it trickles down into different kinds of work that we do, or, you know, different talents that we have or gifts, you know.
I love that. So after this experience, where did you go after? Like you discovered this joy, which I feel like if I'm understanding it right, and you tell me it's a connection to source, to
Yeah,
God.
absolutely.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you feel that living in your body, or was it just like how it's funny when you talk about it, I
Hmm.
going to your left shoulder for some like your left
Oh,
like where your heart is, I guess. And but I know it's not necessarily there, and it could be that this beautiful duck picture is on the wall too. But I'm curious, where did you feel it physically, or were you even aware of that? What did it feel like?
yeah. That's a really good question. It was so different, right? Because I hadn't felt it before. And it was something that was like bigger than anything I had felt before. But like if I read something spiritual, for example, I could feel the vibration of the words, you know, like, and so I knew it was true. So I became very sensitive to like what I felt was true, and then I was gravitate to like books where I felt that energy, like, oh, this is true. Um, in my body, I felt in my body, but also around me. One of the experiences I had, which was actually during the experience, is that Chris took me to the beach, and I just had this experience of the beach I'd never had before, because it was like, I mean, just imagine like, you
Mm.
know, the water's glistening and you're not feeling separate from it, right? Like it's usually you're here on the shore, the ocean's over there, but it was like I was really felt like I was one with it. And that kind of experience continued to stay with me. But I think I felt it in my body, but I also I felt it around me too. But I could feel it that same. I was trying to find a language, right?
Mm.
Um, and So that's always, I think I was directed to certain books and things where I could feel the vibration of things that were different than maybe conventional spiritual things, you know. That's why I love all different kinds of teachings, because I feel like there's like a core truth in all of them if we take the time to really explore it, and not the fundamental teachings of every religion, but the heart and the soul of the mystical side of different religions, right? And teachings. Those assist us, help us to grow.
So thank you for that. I love that. After this awakening, where did you go in your life?
Yeah, interestingly, so I awakened. So this was like it was in 1984. Um, about a year or just a few months after that, Christy had her own awakening,
Mm.
which was completely different than mine. But then it put us in a spiritual path. And before we were you know, we were women loving women, and so our community was mostly women. And now that we were sort of awake, we just wanted to be with people who were awake, right? All genders, you know. And so we sought out communities where we could mostly, first of all, just meditate. We started meditating and, you know, connecting with nurturing things, probably, you know, readings like Louise Hay or, you know, Shirley MacLaine's readings, you know. But then we were one of the first people to become part of Agape
Mm.
International Spiritual Center, um, and which is just huge now. It's right, thousands of people, and so a lot of our spiritual path was in that community. Which if people aren't familiar, it's a trans-denominational and interspiritual, but also home to people of all diverse backgrounds, you know. So it felt like home to us. I used to have this vision when I was a child where I was holding hands of people of different colors,
Mm.
different backgrounds, different genders. And so when I walked into that community, We held hands at the end of the service. I recognized that it was, oh, this is what I saw when I was a kid, just that sense of oneness with everybody, right?
Love that. So when did you write your first poem?
So my poetry shifted after my awakening, right?
Mhm.
And I started to write, had like a practice of writing spiritual writings like once a month. And I was mostly writing more like essays, but all through my life, I think I wrote poetry. It's just sometimes when I go to write, I don't always know if it's going to be a poem or prose, right? I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I'll hear the first sentence. So I'll usually just write when I hear the first sentence, and sometimes it takes sort of a rhythmic form like that I call a poem, and sometimes it's more prose with more like a more direct message, right? But so I just write, and over time, I've just come to make the distinction between when I feel it's more rhythmic, I feel it's more of a poem, but even my essays are kind of rhythmic, yeah, but I've been writing, I think I've pretty much been writing that I'm aware of since, high school. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and this collection is a lot of my poems that I've written over a wide expanse of time. And I wrote a few of them during the pandemic as well.
Wow. When did you write She Let Go, which is in this book, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yes, I just opened to it.
Oh,
That's
yay,
crazy. I
yay.
literally just opened the book and there it was.
Yeah.
Um, when did you write She Let Go?
Yeah, She Let Go was written probably about 20 years ago, 20, maybe a little more than that. And I originally wrote it, I had it just like, I think I just had it on a piece of paper, and I facilitated this retreat in New York. Um, and it was a retreat of women. And at the end of it, I thought I would share this poem because it had come to me maybe like just 2 weeks before or something. So I shared it then, and people resonated with it. And then I shared it as in a prose form years later, um, in Agape International Spiritual Center's little publication called Intervisions. I think that's when people took it, and then because it had an electronic version too, and I think that's
Mhm.
where it kind of just took off. But the funny thing was, is I had no idea. It was years later, someone told me that this poem was popular because I wasn't on Facebook or anything at the time. So it's really that poem, She Let Go, has had a life of its own. It really,
You really let go of it and it
it
went.
really let go. Yeah. It's like a whole life. And it's always funny because, people often mention that poem to me, right? And I'm always like, but inside of me, like, I know who wrote it, right?
Right. Oh,
So
and they're
to me,
mentioning to
it's
you.
like a message, right? Like, this might be a good time to let go, Sapphire.
So they mention it to you, not realizing you're the writer of it.
Sometimes not knowing I'm the writer, or even if they know I'm a writer, they know the inside joke I have, like, okay,
Right.
this is it I need to let go of, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
hysterical.
yeah.
Aw. So what made you write this book, Awakening, Awakening? I know this has been percolating with you for some time, for a little time. What made you say, I have to write this book?
Yeah, I wanted to have a collection of poems to sort of house, in some ways, to house She Let Go, because She Let Go is, in the world, it's had a life of its own, but there's a broader context for it. And I think I wanted to share the broader context of awakening, right? What does all of that take? And I like the title Awakening, Awakening, because it reminds us we don't just awaken and then nothing's happening the next day, right? We're still living our lives, and we're still having to make choices to expand into a bigger way of being and not stay stuck. So I wrote Awaken Awakening with that in mind, putting in a larger context. But I also just really wanted to put more of my poetry out in the world, but give it like a spiritual underpinning, like so people would understand that, oh, this, we progress in life, we expand in life, we go through things in life, and we're not just here doing these external things that we're told that we're what, there's deeper meanings why we're here. And, we're kind of plopped here, right? We really don't know where we've come from. We don't really know where we're going next. And I wanted to give people just maybe a warm place to go where they could say, oh yeah, I've been through that before when I had a difficult choice to make, or, oh yeah, I had that issue when I really wanted to forgive someone, but I didn't know how. And so I think it's a safe place to go where people can feel nurtured and also just continue the process of awakening, right? Awakening, right? We continue to awaken.
Love that. Okay, I think this is a great moment for what I would love for you to do is to read a poem from the book. But before you do that, what I would like is everybody who's just listening to, well, let me ask you, Sapphire, because I almost want them to hold something in their heart and to listen to the poem and see what it offers to them. But is there anything that you would like to say, like that for them to do before you pick a poem to read?
Maybe just listen with your whole being, not just
Okay.
listen, yeah, listen with your whole being to see what your interpretation is for you yourself, right? Because like it came through me in a certain way for me, but now you're listening to it. So what does it mean to you? And
Okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
All right, let's do that.
Okay. You want to pick a number between 1 and 29, or how do you want to do this?
I can do that. 13.
Okay. Give me a moment to count now.
Oh, right, because it's not page 13. It's going to be the 13th poem.
You want
Rather long poem.
to
I think that that's okay. What's a rather
okay.
long poem?
A
Which
rather
one
long
is it?
poem as opposed to a shorter poem.
No, I think you should read it. I think everybody can walk and listen and do the dishes and whatever they're doing. And is it, which one is it?
It's called Great Mother.
Yeah, I just opened to them like that's a long poem.
That's a long poem. You might
All
want to
right,
pick
let's
another
pick
one.
another. Why don't you pick one that you just feel into the energy that you feel needs to be read right now? And then
Okay.
everybody can get the book Awakening, Awakening, and read The Great Mother.
It
I
is
think it's interesting, The
it's
Great Mother, which
beautiful.
I'm sure means a lot of things, but both Sapphire and I both lost our mothers, and I think that's fascinating,
Oh yeah.
you
I
know.
think we're I think they're in our presence right now.
Yeah, maybe just, well, yeah. Why don't you read up until the first paragraph on this page and leave us
Oh,
hanging,
okay.
okay?
We could do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so I would well, I'll let them have their own experience instead of introducing it. That's probably better. Great Mother. Great Mother of all realms and dimensions, wrap your arms around my broken heart and let me grieve. Let me lay down the sword that keeps me battling myself and prevents me from expressing my underlying goodness. Let me release this sense of separation, like a crack going through my heart, a great chasm between then and now, between me and other, between me and you. Carry me across this chasm of separation, and let the tears of my grieving cleanse and release that which no longer serves me. Great Mother, undivided one, reveal the inner wholeness of my being. Let the broken pieces of days gone by, of seeming failures, of unreconciled moments melt in the fire of your divine grace. Am I listening? I let myself be distracted by so many things, like this joy camouflaged as fear, camouflaged as anger. I feel the broken pieces within me warring for my attention. Let me remember that part of me witnessing this war of fictional factions is completely whole and imperturbable.
Mm, I think you have to finish it.
Okay. Great Mother, enfold me in your wings of mercy. Let me cry 1,000 tears for those who have passed, for those who have suffered, for those who have forgotten. Oh, Great Mother, Restore to me the eyes of fresh seeing, that I may look upon this world with its poverty, riches, hunger, and war, and perceive your presence undergirding all. Let me remember your equanimous smile, stretching across the sea of samsara and consuming the night with the light of your generous glowing. Help me to flow with the rhythm of change and ride the wave of your cyclical unfolding, creation, preservation, dissolution, release. A divine seamstress, you unerringly cut away what is no longer needed, revealing life's perfect pattern. Divine Mother, source of all, wipe away the tears of resentment and bitterness from my eyes. Warm my brow with your tender caress. Let me relax into your divine embrace. Release me from worries, cares, and concerns, the how-tos, wins, and whys. Let me dance in your ever-effulgent joy and abundance. Let me know myself as fully and completely as you know me, unencumbered with conscious appreciation and love. Great Mother of this world and that, open my heart to receive your divine blessings. Amplify my willingness to obey your word. Awaken me to your vision of my life. Still me in times of turbulence, that I may radiate the light of your love. Let me be me.
Mm, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really beautiful, Sapphire. Um, I just, there were just so many moments that just came, just held me. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say held me. I could feel it holding me. I could feel it holding me in where I'm at right now, what I'm going through. And the words are so beautiful. And it means so much more than, this, than the mother, our mothers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much greater than that. Um, when you were writing that, what was it for you? Like, what happened? What was the line? Do you remember the line that it started with for you when you wrote it?
Well, this poem I actually wrote after 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was really, well, I think we all were, right, struggling to make sense of what had happened, trying to find a sense of peace. And I just really felt held by, you know, the Divine Mother, whatever you want to call it, Great Mother, the Mother energy. I felt that there was something bigger um, that was moving through us, and that healing would come out of it.
What's so interesting about that is last night, for some strange reason, but not a strange reason, a synchronistic reason, and I'll have to look deeper into this. I was looking for the flag from 9/11 because from my experience, I was in New York at the time. The flag was hung up at Fox News Studios and I signed it. But apparently, because there is a flag, the famous picture of the three firemen holding up the flag, that's in a museum. And when I looked at it, there was no writing on it. So I'm like, what flag did I sign? So it's just so weird. Like, I haven't thought about 9/11. And for some reason, I went to it last night and I went to the flag. And now you're telling me you wrote this poem after 9/11.
Mm.
So there's always like such an important moment. I'm not sure what that means for me right now, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah, well, also the whole 911, the emergency
Yes.
aspect of it. There's a there's a 411 from the 911, right?
Yeah,
Oh.
totally. And during that time in New York, and I'm sure, all over the world, um, we really were held because it was such an interesting time. The city was you weren't nobody was allowed in or out, so the streets were empty except for the people that were stuck in the city. And we really did hold each other. And I, went to St. Vincent's and stood outside. That was the hospital where they were expecting everybody. And my friend was in charge of St. Vincent's as the police lieutenant. So I went inside and we did vigils. Of course, I went down to see the towers and there were people singing national anthems. And we would all take turns to go up to see the last piece of metal. And um, so there's just, so I think my point to everybody is that in this moment right now of you reading this poem, me picking number 13, which is actually the letter M in the alphabet.
Mm.
So, and I know that because my name starts with an M. Um, I think what's more beautiful about this, remember you said this book is activated. It's
Yes,
got energy in it,
it does.
and we're recording this on June 4th, 2024, and I'm going through some major life transformations right now, and I have been. And and if we believe in Saturn return, I'm in my second Saturn return, and the first Saturn return is 27, 28. It depends on what astrology you talk to, which we've been talking about earlier. So I feel like what I'm trying to express to everyone, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, is books like this, Awakening, have so much more power in them than just a poem.
Yes.
And it's got so much richness, history, and also longevity to where you're going. Like, I know after our interview today, I'm going to reread that, but I know that also spirit is going to bring me other things that is going to be so important to the decisions in my life right now, or what I'm choosing. So I just want to bring attention to that. And thank you.
Yeah, I also feel that, you know, I didn't write this book when I was 27.
Right.
A book is coming out now. So um, I think all of us are in a big changes in our life, you know,
Hmm.
and we're looking for inspiration to ground us, really, right? So books like my book and, the work that you do, Marilyn, in the world and for our next level living community, I think people are really searching for how can we stay grounded and stay in our hearts and stay in our loving, right? When things are going around in our world that we feel like we don't have control over or have a say in, it's important to stay grounded in ourselves and not be tossed and turned by the events of the world, right?
So true, because something happened yesterday with a neighbor, and it rocked me from the inside out. And I walked away like ready to just burst into tears. And I was listening to a book that said, you need that steadiness. You need to be in the, I'm not going to say what the grandness, your life internal experience, so that the external experience does not rock you emotionally. That was the thing I listened to right after, and everything you said. And it is material like this, and it is the work that we're doing that is really important, so that we can fill ourselves during moments when it feels like everything's shattering. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And also, it's important, I think, for all of us to remember that the events in our life that occur are not to interrupt our progress
Mm,
or to point us back to ourselves, to recognize it's really who we are that, gets reflected out into the world. So that's always, it's not to trip us up, it's to trip us in, right?
mm.
It's to make us go inside of ourselves and maybe make other choices, maybe make course correction in some kind of way. But always, if you're a spiritual person on the path, right? If you recognize, everybody is, but if you recognize that you're a consciously spiritual person, then if something's happening out here, that there's a macrocosm, but it comes right back to the microcosm, right? It comes right back to you. There is not a disconnect. And I think what's so disturbing right now is for many of us, we feel there is a disconnect, but there really isn't. Because if you're spiritual being here on planet Earth, we're there's an underpinning of oneness that connects us all. And it's better to recognize that than to stay separate from each other. How can I come back to that sense of connection with me and even just your partner, just in a relationship, right? Like, how can I deepen my love for this person I spend all my life? I really have spent most of my life with, Christy, or
Yeah.
whoever is in your life, your partner, your spouse, your child, your pet. How can I use this opportunity of relationship to bring me back to myself and make me really choose again what's important about my life and what I want to be important in my life.
I think the other part of that is choosing the relationship with yourself
Absolutely.
as well.
Coming
Obviously
back
it
to
starts, yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
because really, relationship is really about you.
right. And then connecting to others and stuff.
Yeah. It's really, but it starts with you.
Yeah.
your perceptions, your interpretations, I totally
And
agree.
it's one of the important things that I think when you start reading your life, you start seeing all the synchronicities or the communications or the messages or the experiences. Like I knew very much, well, like, when I left that experience, what spirit was telling me in the experience. And now I know when it's such an awakening moment, it really is. I'm in a big awakening moment right now that I don't take lightly that I'm interviewing you today and talking about your book today, and then you're reading this poem, which has a huge significance. And I feel like, and I'd love to know what you think, but I feel like when we live our lives putting the threads together like that, you've been saying it so beautifully, not like picking things apart, but putting them together. And I can't remember the exact words you used. Then we're creating a tapestry that is so much more I don't, but for me, when I say creating a tapestry or a symphony, it's my own dance. It's my own quilt that's covering me, that's nurturing me, that's holding me, that's being with me. So I'm not sure if there's a question in there, except maybe your experience of it, just of life and spirituality and even poetry. Let me just say this. I'm sorry, it's that I don't usually talk this much on an interview. I hope I don't. But even poetry, sometimes, even though that poem so did, it doesn't always make sense.
Yes,
And
totally.
there we find the clues and the pieces. So say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there. I do feel like one thing I like about poems is that they're sort of impersonal in nature. I think that's so we can bring our own personalness to them.
Yeah.
And if they were, and so that allows us to take it deeper, right? And I like what you said about things seeming to be apart from each other, but there is like, and if you think about the root system of trees, right? We can't see it, but all underneath there's like this vast root system that's connecting them, different families of trees, right? And I think that life is really about, it is sort of like a game of peekaboo, right? Like we see this and we don't really know what it means, but then we see this over here, and then now, oh, maybe these two things are connected, and then how does that relate to me? And you talk a lot about that, Marilyn, about that life really is an adventure, right? That's the fun of life. If everything went according to plan, why are we here? I mean,
Yeah.
really, we're not here to be. Our lives are not here to so much go according to plan as we are to enjoy the plan as it evolves, right? There's a bigger plan, right?
Yeah. So do you feel there is a bigger plan? Do you feel that experience with source and with joy has helped you to live the bigger plan?
Oh, absolutely. Because the difference is, before I was living my life, but I wasn't having moments of really appreciating it, right?
Mm,
Or really understanding its beauty, or really even seeing its beauty, right? Because I was so in my story, in my past. And I'm not blaming anyone for that, right? You awaken when you awaken, right? And we're all on different time clocks on that. There's not like a pressure, right? But we always want to be as conscious as we can be, right? We all have that
mhm.
desire, right? But now when I live my life, um, there's a little space, right? Where I know that there's something independent. I can be happy independent of circumstances that feel crummy in a
Mm,
particular day, right? That I have something inside myself that rejuvenates me, that I can go back to, like joy or whatever you want to call it, or source, right? And what the cool thing about that is that is always there.
mm,
So even if you feel completely upturned and wonder why me, why me, why me, which is always the cry of sometimes the victim, right? But we do have hard times in our lives, right? And so if we recognize, oh, that's the cry of the victim, how can I help myself to move through this? I have tools, I have resources, and I have the ultimate source who's on my side. There's really something I feel that's looking out for us.
I love that. I love that. And I also love like people can pick up your book and they can turn to something and get a little bit of that feeling by reading a poem, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and here's a cool thing. So I invite a reader to just pick a poem, pick a line in the poem, and then write. If
Oh,
that first
interesting.
sentence, yeah, use that. Use one line in the. Just open it up, pick a line, and use that as a first sentence for your own writing. Right? Yeah. So that's
Go ahead.
how you make it your own, right? Then I know people who've taken like and then you don't even have to use that first sentence anymore, right? It becomes your own thing, right? You have something else to say, right? But that's how we, as writers, that's how we can also support each other, right? I can take a line from yours, and I don't have to use that line in my poem, but it inspires me to see what, to write something. Yeah,
So the sentence I went to right away is I'm a woman grieving.
there you go.
Amazing. It's
And
magic.
if you
And then
use,
go ahead.
I use something called writing practice, which is uh, teaching of Natalie Goldberg's.
Mm,
And when you do that, you start with a first line and then you just keep writing. You time yourself like for a certain amount of time and see what comes out.
yeah. Yeah. It's like we called it I didn't do it with the poem, but it's free writing. It
Yeah,
just
rewriting. Mhm.
writing. That's great. So Sapphire, tell us where what you're up to now. And we're going to remind everybody where they can get the book and find out what you're up to and follow you and join
Sure.
your email list and
All that good
all of
stuff.
that kind of great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you did go on my website, you would be able to sign up and you would get a little free gift for signing up for my email list. That's fun. I'm in the process of writing, putting together some essays I've written that are like spiritual essays, some kind of pulling together like a daily reader for people. Um, it's usually for me first. Sorry, but it is. Um,
There's nothing to be sorry about for that. Good.
and then so I'm doing that, and then I'm looking forward to just opportunities to do poetry readings and maybe some workshops with people around my poetry, and also just listening to hear what people have to say about how these poems have impacted their lives. I get a lot of beautiful emails, and I would actually like to thank people for all the emails I receive around She Let Go, because people have told me stories that I mean, when you read the story, you know that the poem came through me, but it's got a life of its own, right? Because
Yeah.
it has inspired people to get unstuck and to make different decisions in their lives. So I'm looking forward to your inspiration as well.
What's funny is, so Denise, who's also in Next Level Living, she posted that one day when she realized who you
Mm,
were.
that's
And she's
right.
like, oh my goodness, Sapphire, I read this poem. I love this poem. I didn't know you wrote this poem.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. It's a lot of different places, and it is funny when people don't know that I've written it.
Hmm.
But they're talking about it, right? That's funny too. But
Yeah.
mostly I'm touched by the way that, to be honest, the poem came through me and I just felt such joy when it came through me. It was just such a joyful experience. Um, it made me laugh, it was a really joyous experience. So to see it in the world and to hear how people have been inspired by it, it's just so moving to me, and it helps, you know, as a writer, you are too, Marilyn, we spend a lot of time in the writing zone, right? But then you want to come up for air. And when you do, to hear people's beautiful support and feedback is always helpful, keep you going when you're kind of doing this alone thing, right?
Yeah, it does help. I got a message from somebody at Next Level Living yesterday, and they wrote me about a big experience that happened in their life and how NLL has helped them. That she was just like, thank you so much for everything you've created and you've made this happen. And I have a hard time receiving that kind of stuff, but it does put a little thing in me like I have to get more of my work out there because a lot of, what we talk about is our artistic, our creativity, our multidimensional way of experiencing life, and then being seen,
Yes,
allowing ourselves to be seen.
that's the clincher.
Yep. Which we should talk about a tiny bit before we wrap up because I know that'll be with
Yes.
people, but I'd gotten 2 messages from NLL people yesterday on Voxer, and I was like, And like spirit is just like, get it out more because I don't really talk about what the program does or the things that I teach in the program or what our all of us, the magic of the program isn't just what I teach, it's everybody in there, it's all of you guys because you're all so phenomenal. So why do we struggle with being seen?
Mhm.
Why do you think? And do you? And I know that poem brought you out in a way that, you know, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to share your experience. You're going to share it. You're going to share whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea the poem was going to reach thousands of people, and I had, you know, no idea. And obviously, it's not something that I conjured up, right? Because I
Yeah.
have no idea how it went viral. I wasn't trying to cause that, right? Um, I think for me, it takes so much to go inside of myself to connect with the beauty and have it come out in words in a particular way. It's a very intimate process, right? So part of it, I think, sharing it with the world is like kind of sharing this really intimate thing, right? Like I have my own experience and connection to it. But it is, I think, one of the reasons why my book's coming out now and not when I was 27 is because I'm at an age now where I'm less concerned about what people think about me than I am about doing what I feel connected to and sharing it with people because it brings me joy, and that has become more important to me than the judgments I have about myself or that others may have about me. And
Yeah.
I think we can all relate to that.
Hmm.
But you know, I think we're all gifted and talented and have something to share, but we get distracted, right? And so what I appreciate about you, Marilyn, is and being in next level living is you kind of take us to task a little bit about like, well, okay, I understand you want to do this, but you're here, and how are you going to get there? And so I think what I appreciate about you is you're not just a woo-woo spiritual person, but you're very practical, and you've really help me take the steps that I need to take to put something like this out into the world. Which because I have to deal with my emotions around it, but also just the physical steps of what I do to bring something out into the world. And so I do appreciate your practical spirituality. And that's one reason why I love Next Level Living, because you have a talented connection to spirit and gifts that you use that you help us to come up with our own way of relating to our instrument. But you're also really good you're kind of like a spiritual detective. It's kind of scary sometimes, but but you kind of hone in on like, oh, but what about right there to the left, and but that's what really makes you so effective and helps us to pursue our dreams in a practical way and make them come true.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's something you said that I think is important. Besides that, thank you so much for that. Again, receive, receive. Um, it's the self-doubt part. And you said something really important because I've been stepping out in a way that I haven't stepped out in before, and I plan on stepping out even more. And a lot of it was the letting go. She let go of me, letting go of my brothers, letting go of my family, letting go of what people think about me, trying to be something I'm not, even if I didn't think I consciously was, unconsciously deep inside of me, the programming's there. You're not acceptable. You're crazy. You're this, you're that. And so when I was asking you that question, I was thinking about like self-doubt that comes up in people's minds. Like, okay, I'm channeling soul constellation and I'm going to teach you how to do a soul constellation, which to my brothers would sound absolutely insane. I don't care what my brothers think anymore, but still that effect, there's an effect there,
Yes.
And I love what you said, which was I stopped caring what people think. It was more important what this was doing for me. I'm butchering your words. The joy it was giving me, it was more important to get it out into the world.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's just a really important point. And I think, we're constantly doing that at the same time, right? So to think that we're just going to be in joy all the time, or always having a difficult time all the time is not really real. And it's not really, I don't know if I want to call it a game, but it's not really the game that we're here to play on planet Earth, but it's really to walk in wonder, right? Walk with both things happening at the same time. So we have the hurts and whatever it is we carry, the trauma that we may carry from the past, but at the same time, there's joy right there, we walk with them both. And it is important to stay connected to the things that bring us joy, which you're really good about teaching us what brings us joy and staying connected to that. Because when it comes down to it, think about it. This is the one time you're going to have all these particular skills and personality and circumstances. It isn't going to happen again. No matter what you believe about where you're going after here, I think we could all agree that this is it, in terms of this particular configuration. And so I think it's important that we make the most of it, and really it causes us to really love ourselves on another whole level, right? To really say, oh, this is the only time that this particular configuration is going to exist, and why don't I make the most of it, and really have that be your guiding light instead of the troubles and the traumas that we've all been through, right?
And battling yourself.
And yeah, exactly. Or battling yourself. And one thing I wanted to share is the good thing about self-doubt is that you're at least aware. So somebody said that recently and I really appreciated. You're not numb, right? So like if you're doubting, at least you're still in it. So not to be too hard on ourselves when we find ourselves doubting ourselves, right? There's still a way to connect, right? We're not just numb, which is the hardest, I think, when we're just numb.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And like I did a reel I think over the weekend, and it's like if you're not uncomfortable, you're not changing. And everybody knows that, right? And it's so true. And we have to remind ourselves of that. And the uncomfortable of today is different than the uncomfortable of 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, because if you're working on yourself, you have more tools, more techniques, more information. So,
yeah. And also, it's important what I've noticed as time goes by, one of the quickest stories that comes to my mind is some sort of victim story. So they're really subtle and insidious. And so that's a good way to go when you find yourself with negative thoughts, or all of a sudden you find yourself in a place you didn't want to be inside yourself, to go, oh, it's the victim story. I've succumbed to it again. And when you hear that, then you can find a way to get yourself out of it, right? Because there's certain things that are true about yourself that you are not really experiencing in the moment. So you can shift like, oh, I'm doing that victim thing again. What's actually true about myself, I'm a spiritual being. I'm here on planet Earth, learning and growing. I know I have tools, right, that I can connect back to the joy, or just go outside and look at a beautiful flower and breathe it in. Seriously, that'll take you out of your victim self.
yeah,
You're not a victim when you're smelling a flower. You are not a victim when you're smelling a beautiful flower. You're just not.
you're not a victim when you're reading a poem.
You're not. I'm turned to into the light.
Yeah, into the light. So, Sapphire, this is amazing. So, for everybody, go get her book, Awakening, Poems of Light on the Path of Love. And you can also find out about Safire Rose at sapphire-rose.com, correct? I don't know if
Yes.
it's a hyphen or a dash. What?
I also have a chapter in a book called Courageous Changemakers, which talks a little bit about my story.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. So that's another book.
It's mentioned at the front of this book, actually. You can
Okay, great.
track it
So it's
down.
another book from another author in Next Level Living, and you wrote a chapter in that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, Courageous Changemakers. So what were you going to say about Courageous Changemakers?
If you wanted to know more about my life, you could read this story, the personal story about my life.
And what's a good social media way of, because I know like we're pushing you out.
Yeah.
What's a good social media way to get in touch with?
I'm at Instagram. I think it's Safire_Rose. And pretty soon, when you go to that, hang on here.
I'm going to it too. I'm not even going to pause the recording. You guys can go live. You can do it with us.
Okay, cool.
Everybody do it
It's
together.
Sapphire.Rose.
Sapphire.Rose. I better
And
be
it's,
following you.
yeah,
Yes.
I spell my name Safire dot Rose, Rose. Some people don't know how to spell my first name, so
Oh, and then your website's there too. So that's
my
great.
website's there. Yeah, my website's Sapphire-Rose, and my Instagram handle is Sapphire.Rose. So it's
Yes.
all about the dashes and the dots, right? Which is about
Yes.
communication.
Well, they give us more information, right? It's
Yeah.
dot dot dash dash dash. Um, Great. So you said you were going to say something about your Instagram.
I'm also have a Facebook business page called Safire Rose Poet. So you can find that. You can find me there
Great.
too.
Sapphire Rose Poet.
Mhm.
And you're going, so go get Sapphire's book, and you're also going to be, I just found it, so I'm going to go follow it.
Thank you.
Oh, right. Put me to your, well, oh, there it is. Follow. Okay. Sapphire Rose Poet on Facebook. And you're also going to be doing probably some more workshops and stuff around writing. Or so if anybody's interested in learning more about what Sapphire's offering, definitely opt into our list. But can they email you anywhere?
Yes, they can email me at connect. Let me get that for you.
Told you I don't know what they don't know what I'm going to ask them. So they're like, wait a second, now I have to know my email too, or how people can connect to me.
I know. Isn't that funny? Um, it's connect at sapphire-rose.com.
Connect at sapphire-rose.com. Do you have any parting words for us?
Oh, I just so appreciate this opportunity, Marilyn. And I love working with you, and I so appreciate this opportunity. And parting words would be enjoy my book and learn about next level living. It's
Awesome.
a great place, a great community to hang out, and the importance of growing in spiritual community. I can't say enough how important that is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I can say that holding your book up to my heart I can feel the energy from it, and it's very comforting.
Oh, thank you.
So I really want to say that go get the book, Awakening, Awakening, because she's right when you say like you have it, hold it is a really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful energy. It feels very, for me, what God is, well, I have a God is what the word I use, and I love joy, the word joy, but it feels very, nurturing and light, and it's going straight through my heart, and it feels supportive is what it feels right now. Like that's what I'm needing right at this moment as I'm doing this interview, is feeling supported. So I love that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn. So
Yeah.
happy to be here.
Well, thank you, everyone. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. Maybe buy this book for a friend, and buy a couple to send for gifts, because I definitely can tell you that Sapphire is one of my most favorite people. I shouldn't say that. And she's a lot of fun, and she's not only like a serious poet, which she's not really. We were like laughing as I was pausing, and the cat's puking underneath my chair, and the dog was about to eat it, and you guys didn't know all this, and we were like, it's just so funny.
It is. It's, life is really funny if you allow it to be. Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was good, huh?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Seriously. Yeah. Life is really funny if you're allowed to be. Seriously. So thank you so much. And rate, review, subscribe. And who can it be now? It's you. It's always you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day or night whenever you're listening to this. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.